Every 10 seconds, someone in the world opens a pornography site. Not once a day, not once an hour. Every 10 seconds. Right now, as you watch this, over 25,000 people are watching pornography simultaneously. Many of them teenagers. Many of them people who have tried to stop, repeatedly. Here's what scientists discovered that almost nobody is talking about. Pornography does not simply arouse the brain. In certain individuals, it rewires it, quietly, gradually, in the same biological pathways used by cocaine, gambling, and alcohol. A 2014 study published in JAMA Psychiatry used brain imaging to compare men who watched pornography frequently to those who did not. What they found in the brain's reward circuitry was so striking that researchers drew direct parallels to patterns seen in substance addiction. But here is the part that will genuinely surprise you. The majority of men who are affected have no idea they are affected. They believe their restlessness, their lack of motivation, their difficulty connecting emotionally with partners, that these are just personality traits, stress, life. They are not. In the next 10 minutes, we are going to go inside the brain and show you exactly what happens when pornography becomes a compulsion. We will look at the neuroscience, the real psychological effects, the impact on relationships and sexual health, and crucially, what science says about recovery. Stay until the end, because the last 2 minutes may be the most important thing you watch today.
Let us start with an important distinction. Not everyone who watches pornography develops an addiction. That is not what this documentary is about. Pornography exists on a spectrum. For many people, occasional use causes no measurable harm. But for a significant subset, the research varies, but estimates suggest somewhere between 3 and 17% of users develop what clinicians call problematic pornography use. Something different happens. So what is pornography addiction specifically? In 2018, the World Health Organization officially recognized compulsive sexual behavior disorder in its International Classification of Diseases, ICD-11. While debates remain about whether to classify it formally as an addiction, the behavioral pattern that researchers describe shares key features with other.
Here is where the neuroscience becomes deeply interesting and genuinely alarming. When dopamine is released repeatedly in large quantities by the same stimulus, the brain does something remarkable to protect itself. It begins to downregulate. It reduces the number of dopamine receptors available. It essentially turns down its own sensitivity to pleasure, not just to pornography, but to everything. This is called desensitization. The Cambridge neuroscientist Dr. Valerie Voon led a landmark 2014 study published in PLOS ONE comparing the brains of men with compulsive sexual behavior to those without. Using fMRI scans, they found that the compulsive users showed significantly higher activation in the ventral striatum, a key reward center, when viewing sexual cues. A pattern that, in the paper's own words, resembles the pattern seen with drug cues in substance addiction. But there is a paradox here that most people do not understand. More activation in the reward center does not mean more pleasure. It means more craving. It means the brain is working harder to chase something it is simultaneously becoming less able to feel. This is tolerance. And in pornography compulsion, tolerance has a particularly destructive expression. Because pornography is infinite and always novel, users frequently report that over time, they need more extreme, more unusual, or more taboo material to achieve the same level of arousal they once felt from mainstream content. This escalation is not a character flaw. It is the brain's tolerance mechanism playing out exactly as it would with any addictive substance, except that with internet pornography, escalation is frictionless. The content is always there, always more extreme, always one click away. A 2019 study published in Computers and Human Behavior found that high-frequency pornography users reported significantly greater difficulty achieving arousal and more escalation behavior compared to lower-frequency users. Critically, this effect was independent of age, challenging the assumption that these are simply biological changes of aging. What this creates, over time, is a brain that is progressively less capable of experiencing satisfaction while being progressively more consumed by the act of seeking it. When the brain's reward system is chronically overstimulated, the consequences reach far beyond sexual behavior. They ripple into every corner of a person's psychological life. Let us separate what the science clearly shows from what remains more uncertain. What research consistently finds is this: men who report problematic pornography use score significantly higher on measures of depression, anxiety, and loneliness than those who do not. A 2020 meta-analysis published in the journal Addictive Behaviors reviewed 43 independent studies and found a consistent association between compulsive pornography use and reduced psychological well-being. But a critical question: does pornography cause depression, or do people with depression use pornography more frequently as a coping mechanism? The honest answer is, the research does not yet definitively separate cause from effect. Most existing studies are correlational, not experimental. What we can say is that the relationship appears bidirectional, each making the other worse over time. What is better established is the cognitive impact. The prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive control center, responsible for decision-making, focus, and impulse control, shows measurable changes in heavy pornography users. A 2014 study by Kuhn and Galanat, published in JAMA Psychiatry, found that higher pornography use was associated with reduced gray matter volume in the right striatum and weaker functional connections between the striatum and prefrontal cortex. Translation: the parts of the brain responsible for breaking impulsive behavior may become structurally and functionally compromised. This may explain what many men with problematic pornography use report anecdotally: brain fog, difficulty concentrating, reduced motivation for activities they once enjoyed, a state clinicians call anhedonia. Tasks that require sustained effort, work, creative projects, physical training, feel increasingly difficult to engage with. There is a compelling neurological reason for this. When the brain's reward system is calibrated to internet pornography, an unnaturally intense and instantly available stimulus, real-world rewards like exercise, learning, and social interaction can no longer compete. The dopamine system has, in effect, been recalibrated to a much higher baseline. One more important note: not all negative associations with pornography are neurological. Some users experience significant shame and moral conflict. Research, including a 2019 study in the Archives of Sexual Behavior, found that perceived addiction to pornography, the subjective sense of being addicted, was more strongly predicted by religiosity and moral disapproval than by actual frequency of use. This means some individuals experience distress not primarily from neurological effects, but from conflict between their behavior and their values. Both are real. Both deserve acknowledgement.
Of all the domains affected by pornography compulsion, relationships are perhaps where the damage is most visible and most painful. Let us begin with expectations. Pornography almost universally presents a distorted depiction of sex. The bodies, the behaviors, the dynamics, all are stylized, produced, and largely disconnected from ordinary human intimacy. When the brain is heavily trained on this content, it can begin to calibrate its expectations accordingly. Research published in the Journal of Sex Research has found associations between high pornography use and lower sexual satisfaction with partners, even when the partner relationship itself is described as positive. Some researchers describe this as a mismatch between the novelty and intensity the brain now expects and what a real, ongoing relationship can realistically provide. What about pornography-induced erectile dysfunction?
This is an area where the science is genuinely developing. There is clinical evidence, including case reports and survey studies, suggesting that some men experience erectile difficulties specifically in partnered sex while remaining responsive to pornography. A 2021 review in the journal Sexual Medicine Reviews examined this phenomenon and concluded that while a causal mechanism is plausible, involving desensitization and conditioning, the evidence remains correlational and further controlled research is needed. This is important nuance. We are not claiming pornography definitively causes erectile dysfunction in all or even most users. What the evidence does support is that in a subset of men, a pattern exists that clinicians are taking seriously. Beyond physical intimacy, there is the question of emotional connection. Studies consistently find that heavy pornography use is associated with reduced empathy, reduced intimacy in relationships, and greater objectification of partners. A 2012 meta-analysis by Wright, Tokunaga, and Krauss found that pornography use was significantly associated with sexual aggression, both in attitudes and with important caveats about research methodology, behavior. Perhaps the most underreported effect is what happens to partners. Research published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior found that when one partner discovers the other's pornography use, it is associated with significant emotional distress, feelings of inadequacy, betrayal, and reduced self-esteem. The psychological impact on non-using partners is real and should not be minimized. The common thread through all of this is novelty versus intimacy. Pornography is optimized for the former. Relationships are built on the latter. When the brain is trained to seek constant novelty, sustained emotional intimacy becomes neurologically less compelling, not because love is absent, but because the brain's reward architecture has been restructured.
Here is the most important thing science has to say about all of this. The brain can change. Not in days, not always easily, but it can change. And the evidence behind that is some of the most exciting neuroscience of the past 2 decades. The principle is called neuroplasticity. The brain is not a fixed structure. Throughout adult life, neural pathways that are used frequently become stronger, and pathways that are not used gradually weaken. What this means for pornography compulsion is this: the patterns that were learned can, in principle, be unlearned. What does recovery actually look like? First, it is important to set realistic expectations. This is not a 10-day reset. Research on pornography use cessation is still developing, and we should be honest that there are no definitive controlled trials establishing exactly how long full neurological normalization takes. Anecdotal accounts vary widely, from weeks to more than a year for the most heavily conditioned individuals. What is better established is which strategies show the most promise. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, has the strongest evidence base for treating behavioral addictions. A therapist trained in this area can help identify the specific triggers, emotional patterns, and environmental cues that drive compulsive behavior and systematically replace them. For many individuals, pornography use serves as a coping mechanism for stress, loneliness, or anxiety. CBT addresses the underlying need, not just the surface behavior. Exercise has compelling evidence here as well. Physical activity directly increases baseline dopamine receptor sensitivity. It does the opposite of what pornography compulsion does, gradually raising the brain's capacity for natural reward. A 2018 review in Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Reviews found that regular aerobic exercise produced significant improvements in reward circuit function in individuals recovering from behavioral addictions. Sleep is non-negotiable. Sleep deprivation lowers prefrontal cortex function and increases impulsive behavior, creating precisely the conditions in which compulsive behaviors are hardest to resist. Prioritizing consistent sleep hygiene is not optional, it is mechanistically important. Social connection is perhaps the most powerful recovery tool of all. Research consistently shows that genuine human connection activates the brain's reward system through oxytocin and natural dopamine pathways. In the long run, rebuilding the brain's capacity to find reward in real-world connection is the most durable solution to the artificial overstimulation of compulsive pornography use. Finally, environmental restructuring matters. Research on habit formation, including landmark work from the MIT Media Lab and the work of psychologist Roy Baumeister on willpower, consistently shows that willpower alone is a depletable resource. The most effective behavioral change comes not from trying harder, but from removing friction, placing devices in different rooms, using content filters, creating deliberate barriers between the impulse and the behavior. One important note: for those whose pornography use is intertwined with trauma, significant depression, or other mental health conditions, professional support is not optional, it is essential.
A therapist or psychiatrist is the appropriate first resource, and there is no version of this conversation that should make someone feel they can navigate serious mental health challenges alone.
We started with a number, every 10 seconds, and we end with a more important number, 0. That is the number of people who developed a pornography compulsion because they were weak, broken, or immoral. Every case, every single case, is a story of a normal human brain responding to an environment it was never designed for. The internet did not exist 20 years ago in its current form. The unlimited, hyper-novel, instantly accessible pornography ecosystem that exists today is, from an evolutionary standpoint, brand new. The brain did not evolve coping mechanisms for it because nothing like it has ever existed before. That is not an excuse, it is a framework. And frameworks matter because how you understand a problem determines how effectively you can solve it. What science tells us is this: pornography compulsion is not a character flaw. It is a behavioral pattern with measurable neurological correlates, meaningful psychological consequences, and real, if still evolving, evidence-based paths to recovery. The men most affected are often the last to realize it, and the gap between knowing something is a problem and being willing to address it can cost years, relationships, opportunities, health. So if any part of this documentary felt uncomfortably familiar, if you recognized your own patterns in what we described today, that recognition is not something to be ashamed of. It is information, and information in the right hands is power. The brain that learned this pattern can learn a different one, and that might be the most important thing science has taught us in the last 20 years. If this documentary gave you something, a new perspective, a useful framework, or simply information you did not have before, please like this video and subscribe to Health at Home. Every like tells the algorithm that this kind of evidence-based, no-nonsense content matters. Leave a comment below. Were you surprised by anything in this video? What question do you still have? We read everyone. And in our next documentary, we are going inside another invisible health crisis: the science of sleep deprivation and what consistently sleeping less than 7 hours is doing to your brain, your hormones, and your lifespan. You will not want to miss it. Stay curious, stay informed. We will see you there.